on the behalf of Team Physio. Yes, ma'am. Shall I start, ma'am? Am I audible? Am I audible, ma'am?
Audible.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Hello. Good evening, you all. Myself, Dr. Himanshu Sharma. On the behalf of Team Physio Inculcator, I would like to welcome you all in our today's session. Today we have a very eminent personality, eminent speaker with us to share their incredible knowledge on the topic rehabilitation of a paraplegic after a spinal cord injury. So we have Dr. Neha Verma here with us on the board. I would like to welcome Dr. Neha Verma. Ma'am, from the core of my heart, we are really grateful to you, ma'am, that you have spared your precious time to share your knowledge with us. And we are feeling much proud to be with you on the board here. Dr. Neha Verma has done her specialization in neurosciences, and Dr. Neha Verma has numerous awards and achievements by their name. She is having around 11 years of experience. She is having around 11 years of experience and having the vast teaching experience as well. Dr. Neha Verma has also guided numerous PG students for their PG research studies. Hello. For their PG research studies, and Dr. Neha Verma also has some of the publication on their own name regarding the women's health and balance disorders. So we are really pleased to have Dr. Neha Verma here with us on the board, that ma'am has spared their precious time to share their incredible knowledge with us. I would also like to welcome all the participants who has joined us for today's session. We are also feeling much proud to be with many senior faculty members and many senior academicians and clinicians with us on the board. I would also like to welcome all the senior faculty members, Dr. Amita Anup Sharma, Dr. Kalpana Jutsi ma'am, Dr. Jiten Munjal sir, my own teachers, Dr. Harsh sir, Dr. Charu ma'am, Dr. Ritu ma'am, and one more eminent personality from the physiotherapy has also joined us for today's session, Dr. Nishant Jamini sir. He is the HOD at the Primus Multispeciality Hospital, New Delhi. So we are really blessed to have such senior members with us, and I would like to welcome all the participants. Again, welcome to the Neha Verma ma'am for their
Thank you,
time sharing. Ma'am, I would request you, I think there was some connectivity issue.
Yeah, there's a connectivity issue, I suppose. Yeah.
So please share the screen again.
Okay. It is not visible.
I would request the participant, they can suggest. I can't see the screen till now. If anybody can see, please. Okay.
Is it visible?
No, ma'am, screen is not visible
Screen
now.
is visible?
No, ma'am, screen is not there.
Internet issue, I suppose. Yeah, one second.
Yes, ma'am, now we can see your desktop screen.
Now?
Now PPT is
it visible?
about to share, not clearly.
Sir?
Now PPT is there, ma'am. Yes, it is on the full screen mode.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes,
Am
ma'am.
I
Audible.
audible?
Yes, ma'am. Audible. Audible.
Okay. So I'll
So
begin.
thank you, ma'am, and welcome back on the board. We are really thankful to you for your time sparing. Thanks to you. Over to you,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Good evening, everybody. Today I'll be sharing my knowledge regarding spinal cord injury rehabilitation and paraplegics. As such, spinal cord injury is a vast topic, so it would be difficult to cover it in 1 hour. But what I have done is mainly I am focused on the rehabilitation part related to paraplegics. So we'll be directly going on to the physiotherapy or rehabilitation of the spinal cord injury patient.
Excuse me, ma'am.
The most of yeah
Ma'am, please, can you please keep your mic closer to the mouth? Voice is bit low.
yeah
If you can be a bit louder, that would be fine.
now
Now that's absolutely
now
fine,
it's
ma'am. Absolutely
yeah
fine.
the
Thank you, ma'am.
okay the most obvious consequence of spinal cord injury is paralysis. However, SCI also has a widespread consequences for many body functions, including bladder, bowel, respiratory, cardiovascular, and sexual function. It also has social, financial, and psychological implications and increases people's susceptibility to late life renal complications as well as musculoskeletal injuries, pain, osteoporosis, and other problems. So, rehabilitation overall includes once the patient or person is injured, first comes the postural reduction, correct positioning, chest therapy, passive movements, and once the fracture is healed, the strength, balance, mobility, wheelchair management can be done. Patient can again be reintegrated into the community as well as in the home. And if patient is working or employed, then once he stands on his own with the help of walker or crutches, is able to walk, then in employment also he can be reintegrated. So first we will begin with the management in acute phase. First of all comes the positioning. Positioning, why it is required? It is required not only for the correct alignment of fracture, but also to prevent pressure source and inhibit the extreme spasticity. So in supine line, the lower limbs, hip needs to be extended and slightly abducted, knees extended but not hyperextended, ankles dorsiflexed, toes extended, and even one pillow between the legs can be used to maintain abduction and prevent the pressure on bony points, that is the medial condyle. Now, sideline or lateral position, which is also a more preferable position for the paraplegics. Lower limbs, hip and knees flex to obtain stability. We can use a pillow between both the legs, ankle dorsiflex, toes extended. And for upper limb, lower arm, shoulder is flexed, elbow extended, forearm in supination position, which may be supported on arm board or pillow on table, and upper arm same as in supine, supported on a pillow. So these are the two preferable positions for the paraplegic patient. Of course, we'll be talking only about the paraplegics. I won't be covering the tetraplegia and their positioning and all. Now, second point after positioning is the respiratory management. Respiratory care will vary according to the level of injury and individual respiratory status. So depending on the level of injury, the patient may have different type of problems. So primary goals will be to improve ventilation, increase effectiveness of cough, prevention of chest tightness, and prevention of ineffective substitute breathing patterns. So, management for the respiratory care would be deep breathing exercises, that is diaphragmatic breathing to be practiced by applying light pressure during both inspiration and expiration. Incentive is spirometry, and even the mirror can be used for the visual feedback while performance of the deep breathing exercise. Then glossopharyngeal breathing. What is glossopharyngeal breathing? Taking the gulps of air inside. Then assisted cuff techniques. Assisted cuff techniques can be given using a single therapist or two therapists on the side of the patient. And Hamlick's maneuver and postophrenic assist are the common assisted cuff techniques for helping to expel out the secretions during the acute phase. Then abdominal binders, abdominal support. Abdominal corset can be used to support the contents in the abdomen and improve the resting position of the diaphragm. Also, this would help to maintain the intrathoracic pressure. So, proper placement of abdominal support or abdominal corset or binders is very important in acute spinal cord injury patients. Now, stretching. Stretching of pectorals and other chest wall muscles. Also, strengthening. We can use the manual contact or weight over epigastric area for diaphragm strengthening. Strengthening for innervated abdominal and accessory muscles, and postural drainage and percussion techniques to assist with the mobilization and elimination of secretions. Now, in the acute phase, next most important point is maintaining the joint range of motion. So, for maintaining joint range of motion, passive movement of paralyzed limbs are essential to stimulate circulation and preserve the full range of movement in a joint. And during period of spinal shock, treatment is given twice daily. Now, what cautions has to be taken while performing the passive movement, which usually people in the clinical practice sometimes who are not knowing what precautions have to be taken, they just perform the passive movement vigorously and patient lands up into some complication. So extreme range of movement at hip or knee is avoided, as tearing of structures may cause para-articular ossification, which is a common complication in the spinal cord injury patient. Only 45-degree abduction is given to avoid tearing of any structures on medial side of the thigh. Flexion of hip with knee flexion is cautiously done in case of fracture of lower thoracic or lumbar spine to ensure the movement does not occur in spine. SLR is avoided because of danger of putting a stretch on durameter. Now, maintaining of muscle length. Gross contractures occur when paralyzed limb is not moved. For example, contractures may occur in following situations. Like, first, a muscle on one side of a joint is innervated and opposing muscle is paralyzed. It is a two-joint muscle. Or when patient lies with spine and hyperextension to heal a fracture and joint produces slight flexion of the hip joint. So to prevent shortening, what has to be done is stretching of the hip flexors, quadriceps, anterior fascia of the thigh, TFL, tendo-Achilles, and flexors of the toes has to be performed in the patient. Now, active movement and strengthening exercise. For paraplegia, muscles of the trunk need to be strengthened. All the upper extremity muscles are strengthened with emphasis on shoulder depressor, triceps, latissimus dorsi required for transfer and ambulation. PRE using cup weight, and all movements can be given bilaterally when patient is in supine position so that resistance is constant throughout and there is no unequal pull on the unstable spine. Quadratus lumborum is of course a very important muscle to be strengthened in paraplegics, and even biofeedback can be used for the strengthening purpose. This is a diagram showing the active assisted exercises with the help of pulley. The next very important point in the acute spinal cord injury patient is making him orient to vertical position. Patient feels giddy or sometimes autonomous dysreflexia can be aggravated. So tilting has to be done very slowly, and tilt table can be used for orienting the patient this period. And 10-10 degree of increment in the tilt table has to be done while orienting the patient to vertical position. Bladder training program. The primary goal of bladder training program is to allow the patient to be free of a catheter and to control the bladder function. Now, automatic or reflex bladder. So, manual techniques like tapping on suprapubic region, hair pricking, stroking like abdominal reflex, lower abdominal stroking, pinching etc. to trigger the reflex detrusor action, because in an automatic or reflex bladder we have a retainment of the detrusor action. When training the patient is able to empty the bladder every 2 to 3 hours. The autonomous or non-reflex bladder. Mostly in a spinal cord injury patient, we have two types of bladder developing after the spinal shock has subsided, that is the reflex bladder or non-reflex bladder. So we are talking about the autonomous or non-reflex bladder. This bladder can be obtained by increasing the intra-abdominal pressure using Valsalva maneuver, or manually compressing lower abdomen using the Creed's maneuver. Deep breathing exercises by placing hands on the bladder and increasing the resistance during inspiration. And when bladder training is ineffective, then patient has to be obviously suggested the intermittent catheterization. Even a nurse, rehabilitation nurse can perform the intermittent catheterization, or patient can also learn the self catheterization. Now, bowel training program. Again, we have two types of bowel. If reflex is intact, then reflex bowel and non-reflex bowel. So, reflex bowel will require use of suppositories, digital stimulation techniques to initiate defecation. Digital stimulation involves stretching of anal sphincter, which stimulates the peristalsis of colon and evacuation of rectum. Non-reflex bowel relies heavily on straining with the available musculature and manual evacuation techniques. Bowel management for SCI will also include the multiple interventions like diet modification, fluid intake, stool softeners, suppositories, and manual evacuation. So these are the points related to management of a spinal cord injury paraplegic patient in the acute phase. Now we are coming to the management in late stage. In late stage, we have whether pressure sores are developing. So instruct the patient to allow inspection of the area. Wall mirrors adjacent to the bed may also assist in achieving independence with this sort of inspection activity. And all those activities which were done in the acute phase will be continued. Now, we are coming to the mat. So, first is rolling. Now, usually in the departments, we see patients are rolling, they're coming into prone position, quadruped, humping and hollowing of the back. But actually, we being academician and students who are learning physiotherapy, they should actually know which position is helpful in what, which are the muscles that are being fired, how the patient is able to perform this activity. And even by seeing the patient, we should be able to understand what are his limitations, what he will be able to do, which exercises have to be taught to him, which exercises should not be taught. Because if we are having a theoretical knowledge and just whatever we have read, I've seen many students just applying whatever we have read, everything into the one patient. So that has to be avoided. We should really know what has to be done and what has to be avoided. So first, rolling. Rolling helps in what? It is very significant to improve bed mobility, pressure relief, and dressing. It is also a preparation for positional changes in bed. It will help in the lower extremity dressing. Start teaching from supine. And if you find there is an asymmetric weakness, always start towards the affected side. Next position is prone on elbows. Use to enhance the bed mobility. Preparation for the quadruped and sitting. Facilitates the head and neck control because it's upright. Facilitates the glenohumeral and scapular muscle co-contraction, because at the same time glenohumeral and scapular muscles are co-contracting to maintain this position. And even in this prone on elbows position, we can also go for the scapular strengthening. Next, prone on hands with paraplegia. The development of initial hyperextension of hips and low back for patients requiring postural alignment during ambulation. Pectoralis major and deltoid need to be very strong for this activity. And scapular depression and prone push-ups can be utilized as strengthening exercise in this case. Supine on elbows. The purpose of this activity is to assist again with bed mobility and to prepare the patient to assume long sitting position. If the abdominals are not working, patient must wedge the hands beneath the hips or hook thumbs into pants or belt loops. Patient uses the biceps or wrist extensors to pull up partially into the position and then shifts repeatedly side to side until elbows are under the shoulders. This is a diagram showing how the patient is made to come from supine to sitting position. Therapist is assisting from the upper thorax and patient is slightly coming into the sitting position. Then sitting. Both long and short sitting positions are essentials for ADL like dressing and self-harm. This is a diagram showing a long sitting position and this is a figure showing the short sitting position. So both positions have to be taught to a paraplegic patient before he becomes independent in the ADL. Now coming to moving on mat. So how patient will move on mat? By lifting sideways, forward, backward. With the help of push-up blocks, patient can be taught to lift off the buttocks and move forward, sideways and backward. These are the push-up blocks and we have to initiate the activity with weight bearing on the mat and using push-up blocks with graded increments in height. Coming to balancing activities, first supported with one hand and then unsupported. Balance can be taught on unstable surface like Swiss ball. And again, if we want to increase the difficulty level, then patient can first keep his eyes open and then eyes can be closed while doing the Swiss ball activity. And of course, these exercises have to be done in front of the mirror so that patient also has a visual feedback. Quadruped position. It is a lead up activity to ambulation and allows weight bearing through the hips and useful for initiating the control of available muscle of lower trunk and hip. Now, when the patient comes into a quadruped position, what we can do is to ask him the humping and hollowing of the back. This humping and hollowing of the back is also known as cat and camel exercise. And once patient comes into quadruped position, is stable in that position, then he is able to perform the humping and hollowing of the back. Further on, what we can add as a challenge is Swiss ball in the same position. And rocking in all the directions using Swiss ball can be done to further challenge balance in this position. Next, kneeling. Kneeling is important for trunk and pelvic control and for promoting the upright balance control. And of course, from kneeling, patient, if is incomplete spinal cord injury patient, is a patient of paraparesis, he can even be brought into the half kneeling and then into the standing position. Now transfers. Transfers are started after the patient has adequate sitting balance. Initiate from a firm mat surface and progress to alternate surfaces like bed, toilet, bathtub, car, chair to floor. Now, this is a transfer from wheelchair to mat table or mat and how the patient is himself initiating the transfer after locking the wheelchair and slowly coming from chair onto the mat table. Wheelchair to mat transfer using a transfer board. First, patient positions the wheelchair at a 20 to 30 degree angle to the surface to which he is transferring and positions the board maybe with assistance or without assistance and the patient moves forward to clear the tire in preparation for lateral movement on the transfer board. And to achieve the appropriate mechanical leverage, the patient is instructed to move towards the upper body and look over the trailing shoulder. He pushes and lifts and slowly comes onto the mat table and lifts his legs up. Floor transfer. In this, patient slowly comes from wheelchair onto the floor. Same way, floor transfer can also be done sideways. After moving to the front of the wheelchair seat, patient leans to the left, reaches for the floor and shifts his weight towards the left side. Forward lowering floor transfer. In this type of transfer, slowly patient is lowering himself from the wheelchair onto the mat. So it is a forward lowering floor transfer. Now, floor to wheelchair, it has again various approaches. It can be backward approach, sideways approach, forward approach. Now, this approach is a backward approach. Patient is holding on to the wheelchair and with the strong muscles of the upper limb, slowly will lift whole of his body and just sit into the wheelchair. So, floor to wheelchair using a backward approach. Now, floor to wheelchair transfer using a frontward approach. In this, again, wheelchair is being approached but from front side, and once the patient reaches till the seat, slowly turns and sits into the wheelchair. Then floor to wheelchair transfer using a sideways approach. Similarly, floor to wheelchair transfer can be made using a sideways approach, in which sideways the patient will sit or approach. Now, coming to orthotic prescription, patients with low thoracic lesions like T9 to T12, they'll need the knee ankle foot orthosis. Now, T2 to T8, they are not the candidates for orthotic prescription. They can stand only with the use of posterior splints or standing frame. Lower level L3 and below, AFO, ankle foot orthosis of different types may be used. Then functional electrical stimulation and functional electrical stimulation with cycling is also being used in the recent days. The electrical impulses provided to paralyzed muscle via surface electrodes to elicit muscle contraction, which may be translated into the functional activity. Now, gait training. It's really a different concept whether paraplegics are able to walk or they can be trained the gait. Yes, most of the patients, if they are the patient of incomplete spinal cord injury, they will be able to walk to a certain extent. Maybe if the patient is able to stand or walk physiologically, just he is a physiological standard, still we have to instill the gait training in those patients. So training will include donning and doffing of orthosis. What is donning and doffing? That is putting on and removing the orthosis. Patient should be taught correct way to apply orthosis in supine or sitting position. And we have to also keep a check in pressure areas. So this is very important. Mostly when we ask the patient to wear the orthosis, some will apply the orthosis in the standing position only. No. The ideal position to apply the orthosis, whether it is HKFO or trunk HKFO, THKFO, it has to be applied in supine or sitting position. Patient should be comfortable, relaxed, and of course keep a check on the pressure areas. Second is the sit to stand activities. Now, with wheelchair between the parallel bar, patient is taught to sit to stand, first without orthosis and then with the orthosis. Patient is taught to pull to stand using the parallel bars. So this is a diagram showing a patient standing between the parallel bars. Now, the question is how the patient is standing. Of course, is using the strong upper limbs, which has been strengthened. But whatever residual muscles which are working, they are the quadratus lumborum, latissimus dorsi, and few ligaments of the hip joint. Only these muscles and ligaments will help the patient to stand. So whenever you will see a patient standing or walking, will be standing in a bit of extension just to balance the center of gravity. Now, once the patient stands in between the parallel bars, he should be taught the trunk balancing. Patient learns to balance the trunk in hip extended position, weight well balanced over the feet. Even we can ask the patient to do weight shifts in the forward, backward, and sideways direction if it is feasible for the patient. Then in the same position, standing position, push-ups can be done. And of course, these exercises which I am covering now will be a bit of difficult exercises. So each and every patient won't be able to do all the exercise. We have to customize the program according to the capabilities and the impairments of patient. So push-ups, then turning around. Turning around seems to be very easy for us, but as we know, most of the falls which occur in a stroke patient or a spinal cord injury patient will occur while turning, because turning is a difficult process. Patient is not able to balance properly while turning from both the sides, because in the stroke also one side is affected, and even in paraplegia there can be asymmetric weakness or asymmetric weakness. So turning around has to be taught very carefully in between the parallel bars and then outside the parallel bars. Jackknifing phenomena. What is a jackknifing phenomena? It is controlling pelvis using upper extremity support and positioning the head and shoulder always ahead of pelvis. So patient has to taught while walking in between the parallel bars, he has to position his head and shoulder always ahead of pelvis. Reason, just to balance the body. Exercise in standing. Now in standing position also some variations of exercises are possible, like pelvic side tilting can be done, lifting both the feet off the ground and controlling the pelvis, and resisted hitching, resisted hiking of the pelvis. Now, what are the possible gaits if a paraplegic walks? Swing to, swing through, 4-point gait, training on walker, training on crutches if possible for the patient. So, first, A to C, the position of therapist hands has been shown, and D and E is a swing to gait, and F image is a 4-point gait. So what has to be done in swing 2? In swing 2 gait, if we draw a line joining both the hands, so whenever patient swings the lower limb and trunk, he has to bring the lower limb till the line joining the two hands. So that will be swing 2 gait in a paraplegic. And for swing through gait, patient has to cross the line joining the both hands. In a 4-point gait, may be also known as reciprocal walking. One hand opposite leg, another hand opposite leg. And in case of patient, it will be a bit difficult because patient will be wearing the trunk or HKFO or hip knee ankle foot orthosis. It will be quite heavy. So patient will literally drag his foot. It would not be very easy and feasible for him to lift the foot. Then comes the training on walker. If the patient is paraparetic and yes, he is able to walk, then we can train on walker. Again, we have to keep in mind which side is more weaker in case of paraplegia as well. And finally, even the patient can be given crutches or gaiters, whatever is the possibility according to the his or her impairment. This is a diagram how patient slowly turns into the parallel bars while just slowly dragging the foot. Then balance exercises. A image is of balancing using crutches or gaiters. B image is a image of 4-point gait using gaiters, and C is a swing through gait using the gators. Now coming to few recent advances which have been used in a spinal cord injury patient is the body weight support treadmill training. Body weight support treadmill training is an intervention that allows the individual with SCI to walk on a treadmill with some of their body weight externally supported. Therapists will aid in the movement of lower limbs during ambulation on treadmill if necessary to just mimic a normal gait. And individuals with SCI who were trained with the BWSTT have demonstrated improvements in their treadmill speed, exercise duration, and some have even shown the functional improvements in their ambulatory abilities. So it has been tried a lot for the management of the spinal cord injury paraplegic patient. And another is the whole body vibration therapy, that is WBV training. It has become increasingly accessible and popular for training individuals with and without disabilities in recent years. Vibration is used as a mechanical stimulus to increase motor unit recruitment to the feet when standing on a vibration platform, vertical or oscillating, or by the tendon of a muscle belly when a handheld unit is used. So this is an image showing the use of whole body vibration for the patient. And these are my references: Sullivan, Darcy Umfred, Ida Bromley, few of the research articles, and of course Webb. Himanshu sir, I finished with my session. Hello. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, and thanks a lot for such a great session and a very great practical explanation of the topic, rehabilitation of the paraplegia. So we are really grateful to you, ma'am, for such a great topic and making it so much simplified for the participants. And if you allow, ma'am, can we ask for the queries?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So if anybody has any query, they can ask. They can write down the chat box. Then we can have the queries. Ma'am, there is one question from Swaminathan. Kindly give a brief idea on the transfer of a patient from wheelchair.
Any level he wants to specify or something?
Level has not been described yet.
Transfer from wheelchair.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now transfer from wheelchair can be on various surfaces. First of all, we will do always select a higher level, like from wheelchair to mat table. And slowly when the patient is able to perform on the higher level, then we'll go to the lower levels, like from mat table to more low surface, from mat table to floor, from wheelchair to floor. So like graded increments we do. So slowly and slowly we have to, the thing which is more biomechanically difficult has to be done afterwards, and which is more easier has to be done before. And it can be done on various surfaces
Thank you,
using
ma'am.
the
Thanks.
forward, backward, and sideways approach.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. And I would also like to let you know that we have many senior faculty members present over here. Even though our tomorrow's resource person, Dr. Sunita Sharma ma'am, she is having around more than 25 years of experience.
Yeah.
And she is the principal in the Jaipur Hospital College of Physical Therapy in the Jaipur.
Yeah, neuroplasticity topic. I will be attending tomorrow.
So ma'am
Yeah.
is also joining us here in the session. And it is a honor of your session that we had a lot of participants from even not in the country, from outside the country.
Yeah.
My own teacher, Dr. Charu Sharma, is joining us long away from the Washington, USA. Dr. Amita Anup Sharma is joining us from the Saudi Arabia, Yanubu. And Dr. Priyanka Mangal is also joining us from the USA itself. And from India also we have the participants from the all corners of the India, from Assam to the Kanyakumari and the Kashmir. So it is the aura of your session, ma'am. We have a good participant from all over the country.
Thank you very much.
And it was
And I'm also very much thankful to my senior Riturani Sharma ma'am, Dr. Harsh sir, for giving me a platform to conduct this webinar. And of course, this is the first time I'm conducting the webinar during the COVID-19. But
Thank
it
you.
was a nice experience, and even I brushed up my favorite topic, that is spinal cord injury.
Oh,
And of course, it was a brief introduction. And even if our college would have been open, so I would have tried to add some videos of the model at least. Patient, I don't think at this time would be coming, but okay, next time if I get
thank
a
you, ma'am.
chance, will good.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. It was a great topic and well explained. Even though in a very short period of time, you have completely
Yeah,
covered all the areas of the rehabilitation of the paraplegic. So it is a itself a great thing, ma'am. And
yeah.
we are really thankful to you for taking webinar, for sparing your precious time with us. And at last, there is information that we had another session tomorrow at 9 p.m. on the neuroplasticity. So till then, stay tuned, stay safe, and take care. Again, thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much to all the senior faculty members, senior academician, my all respected teachers and mentors for continuously supporting and blessing us. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care all. Good night.
Good night.